Is a Mitch Marner extension now more likely than a trade? We'll discuss that report and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. What's going on, Dave? How you feeling on a Tuesday?
Feeling pretty good, but I also remind myself of how terrible my memory is at sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was at that premiere of the documentary the other night, I told you after the show.
So literally the second we stop recording, Dave's like, "Oh, I'm a dummy." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "I meant to say something and give a shout out." So Dave, give your shout out now so we don't forget. Let's get it out of the way right off the top.
So I was on the red carpet. You know, it's a pretty glamorous event. All of a sudden, a nice lady is just like, I recognize you from somewhere. And this is an Argos event. I cover the team. So I thought maybe this person saw me at games and maybe thought that's where they saw me. So no, you do a podcast, right? About the Leafs. I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah, Locked On Leafs. See, I listen to you guys every day.
Yeah. What's her name?
Her name, and I had to remind myself to not forget. I even wrote it down. Maria.
Maria.
So
ciao, Maria.
Yep, she's a big fan of yours as well. She wishes you were, still had your show over at Leafs lunch there. So she was. I guess she'd listen.
Two of us, Maria. That makes two.
So yeah, no, it's always great when people recognize us like that. So appreciate the support.
I love it too, man. Like I have people come up to me like when I'm at the hockey card shows and stuff, and they're like, "Hey, man, like love you, obviously, the Al's brother bit," and then they're like, "Oh, I started listening to you and Dave and your podcast, and I love it. Like you guys are awesome," and I appreciate that. So like, if anyone does see Dave and I out in public, and you're a listener to the show, and you want to come up and say hi, I don't bite. Can't speak for Dave. Not sure what he does with rabid fans in public, but I loved sitting there chatting with Puck with people. I tell you, so I've started going on like these nice long walks with the weather being nice in downtown Toronto, and I go and I walk to like Harborfront in that area, and I had a gentleman stop me. Similar situation, watches the show, watch me, obviously with my stuff with TSN. And we must have chatted for, probably like 25 minutes, just kind of pulled to the side over on Harborfront and just talks, just like what's going on with the Leafs, what's going on with Marner, and, the whole nine. You get all the questions on people want to know what's happening with the team as if, I have an inside guy feeding me all this information. I'm like, I got opinions. Like I talk to some people, but mainly I just got strong opinions on what should be happening. Speaking of strong opinions, and some insight and some discourse, we will get into it. There was obviously I don't know if we could call it a bomb dropping, but Darren Dreger did kind of add some fuel to the Mitch Marner fire story today on First Up on TSN 1050. So we'll get to that story in a little bit. And there's actually a few straggling mailbag questions that kind of came in a little late, and people decided to add in the comment section after like our first couple of videos. So we're like, yeah, let's kind of get to those as well. But I first and foremost, I think we got to give a big congratulations, Dave, to the Boston Celtics. Just won themselves an NBA title, to the champions. They absolutely steamrolled through the playoffs. 16-3 record, just pure domination. I will say this though, and I know this is obviously a take that every hockey fan ever has. I still just, A, trophy's terrible, but B, cannot stand that they give the trophy to the owner first, or the governor, whatever they want to call it. It is so annoying to me. It's like they didn't win the championship. I get it. These guys, yeah, they put up the money and they invest in whatever, but it's the players who win the title. Give them the title and the championship before you give it to the owners. I mean, that's hockey does their celebration right. That's what I've always appreciated about it. The greatest trophy in sports, the Stanley Cup. Can't get much better than that. And just like the way that they go about the celebration and the ceremony, they present to the captain, and then every player gets to touch it, and then the coaches, and then finally you'll end up having the owner come in and he gets his hands on the cup before some of the other lower level staff get to get involved. But I've always thought that whenever I watch, whether it's NBA or it's NHL or MLB or the NFL, they always give it to the owners first. It just bugs me, man, just so
Hate it.
much. Ugh.
Absolutely hate it.
You know what I also what I do like about their ceremony in the NBA, and we literally just watched it, so it's on the top of my mind. I do like how, they get to interview all of the players like one by one, player by player, so like everyone has a chance. I feel like the NHL, it's a little chaotic. It's like, oh, we'll just grab whoever in here and we'll just grab, this guy, grab that guy, kind of when you get a chance. But you miss some stuff. And then you don't get a chance to hear everybody speak or whatnot. Whereas it's a little bit more controlled, I guess, in the NBA. Smaller rosters, I guess, so it allows for that. But everyone's on the stage, right? And it's just like you talk, then you talk, then you come, and I don't know, I think they do that properly. Like the NFL does it very similar, where they got like 4 or 5 guys up on the stage and they talk to those players. Maybe the NHL, it's the one thing I wish that they did a little bit better was, talking to people and having like the inner arena mics picking up what's going on with some of the stars that led their team to the championships. That's the only thing that I think the NHL could maybe pull from some of these other trophy celebrations. Other than that, boy, hockey just does it right, pal.
Oh, they definitely do. And I don't know if you caught, I think Joel Embiid the other day, because they were talking about the Celtics dominance, and he kind of like tried to brush off as if like the East didn't put up like a great fight against Celtics. And I'm like, well, you're right. They didn't, because the Celtics destroyed them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was trying to throw some cold water. He's on the whole Celtics championship like building of a dynasty, saying the whole East was hurt. I'm like, we'll see.
I mean, they were the number 1 team through the regular season, and then steamrolled through the playoffs and won in 5 games in the NBA Finals, and won pretty handily in Game 5, I might add, as well, on home court in front of their fans. So, really cool. Congrats once again to the Boston Celtics. But I guess to transition into the hockey conversation from that is, will the Panthers follow suit and win this one tonight in 5 games against the Oilers? Like, so far, the script has been the exact same between the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals, where, the favorite team wins the first 3 games, and then the, team with their back up against the wall down 3-0 blows out the team to stay alive. And then Game 5, you had the Boston Celtics go in and take care of business. What do you think, Dave? Do the Panthers take care of business tonight?
Yeah, they just wanted to piss the Oilers off and make them have to travel all the way back to Florida.
Win in front of their home fans.
Exactly.
Why not? Why not? I mean, I think there's a good chance that they do close it out tonight as well. I saw so many people talk. They're like, oh, the Oilers, like, they scored 8 goals the other night, and they're like, God, they're using up all their goals. Now they're gonna score like 1 or 2 in Florida. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. Like that, it was so annoying to see people suggesting that. I know some people are joking, obviously, but it's like, why would you want someone to stop at like 4, thinking like, okay, if you don't get the 6th, 7th goal in this game, maybe you'll get an extra goal in the next game. It's like, you think that's not how it works, people.
No.
But we'll see if they can carry it over. I mean, if they do win tonight, things get interesting, right? If they get to go back to Edmonton for Game 6 with a 3-2 series, things do get interesting. So if you are the Florida Panthers, you're gonna want to close it out tonight, and I think they will. I mean, the way that Bobrovsky has, been able to bounce back all year, the way that this team has been able to bounce back, and how good they are, how deep they are, how structured they are, they should be able to. Although I don't know if you saw this stat that came out about the Edmonton Oilers under Chris Knobloch and their record when losing 3 games in a row. Did you see that stat floating around there?
Didn't see that one actually.
So 3 times this year did they have a 3-game losing streak under Chris Knobloch, and all 3 times, so they went 16-0 when they went on that streak, right? They lost the first 3 games that he got
Right.
there, and then they won 16 straight. The next time they lost 3 in a row, they won 5 straight, and the next time they lost 3 in a row, then they won, I think, 5 or 6 straight after that as well. So under Knobloch, when they lose 3 straight, they usually go and win at least 4 or 5 games afterwards. So now you got a lot of Oilers fans kind of clinging on to that and be like, all right, Saturday, that was just one of 4 or 5 that we've been able to get all year, right? They've been the bounce back kings. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if they play the way that they did with the level of urgency and control that they had in game 4, they'll stand a chance. Absolutely. Pepper the goalie, make him work. But I expect for Florida to be a lot better tonight as well. So looking forward to the game, but I'm with you. I think it ends tonight. I don't want it to. I really don't want it to. I would like for this series to get extended and give us some more hockey to watch and talk about. I'm not ready for summer quite yet. It's funny, we complain and moan all year or all like last week or 2 weeks. It's like, oh, it's so long. I can't believe that they're dragging it out this far. And now that it's only like a game or a day or 2 possibly away from hockey being over, it's like, maybe I could use an extra day, an extra game or 2 and stretch it out as long as possible. I don't know if you feel that way, but I'm kind of at that point myself where it doesn't matter that much that it could go into the June 20s. Wouldn't bother me too much.
I wouldn't hate it if it ended, but I mean, I also said I wanted this to be somewhat competitive, so I was expecting this to be a little bit longer. But yeah, we'll see if Edmonton's got it going for tonight.
We shall see. All right, coming up on the other side, Darren Dreger dropped a bit of a Marner bomb. We'll get into that and more. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and the Stanley Cup Finals, and you can bet on it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Stanley Cup MVP. You can bet on any home runs. You can bet on it all at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday here. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcast from, whether that's Spotify, iTunes, Podcatcher, wherever, and also up on YouTube for the video format. If you want to check out the video on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the show. That'd be greatly appreciated. We are on the road to 10K subscribers. The quicker we get there, the quicker one of y'all can win yourself another Leafs jersey giveaway. All right, Dave, let's get into today's Leafs content. So Darren Dreger, TSN insider, had a hit this morning on First Up, or Monday morning rather, on First Up. And boy, did he ever really get Leafs Nation going with the report that he gave. I don't even know if you want to call it a report. I don't know what to call it at this time. There's a lot that's being talked about, and whether it's a report or it's an opinion, it's kind of all blends together at this point in the year. Are we allowed to play the clip? Like, should we play the clip and hear for ourselves? All right, let's play the clip so that those who missed it hear what he had to say, and then we can kind of break it down and give our opinion on the situation afterwards. But basically, here's Darren Dreger on the latest and what he believes to be the latest in the Mitch Marner situation.
The one question I get asked nonstop, especially over the last week, will Mitch Marner be a Maple Leaf when the season starts? And I don't know how you answer that, Drags, but I answer yes. I think he's still going to be a Maple Leaf.
I do too, and that's the factual way to answer it today, right?
Yeah.
Now, if Brad Treliving has a conversation with a club or clubs, and there's a potential trade scenario that develops from those conversations, yeah, he could take that to the Marner camp, and the Marner camp could say, yeah, all right, you obviously don't want me, so I'm okay with that. And by the way, there's a big extension that comes with it. Okay, yeah, fine. But I'm also, I believe, based on the people that I talk to, again, as we're having this conversation, Marner's preference is to play out his contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's got 1 year remaining. Doesn't mean that he's going to walk out the door after next year. That doesn't mean it at all. Of course, there's risk of that because he'd be a pending unrestricted free agent. That's not the perfect position for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But, Marner negotiated his deal in good faith, including the no-move clause. Toronto finds something or decide. And are we so sure that Toronto doesn't want to extend Mitch? I'm not. I think Treliving would rather extend than trade. But they're not having those discussions yet either.
Wow.
It's still early. It's very premature across the board.
So that little the last little nugget there, I think, is what kind of caught the eye of a lot of Leaf fans here, where he said he's not so sure that Treliving is looking to trade Marner. Said he thinks he would rather extend Mitch Marner than trade him at this point. What do you make of what you just heard there? Considering how we've talked about this situation all summer long.
Well, exactly. Like the big one here is remember when we were talking about LeBron having that conversation with Treliving and him asking about Marner. Like, not once do we hear Treliving talk about making it a priority to get the contract done. We got to sign him. We got to get that contract done. And when we talked about that, it was a shift in kind of what we heard between the Nylander and the Matthews conversation. And to me, that's why that last part of the Dreger report doesn't really jive with me, because if Brad Treliving really wanted to sign Mitch Marner, he would have come out and said it.
That's a good point, actually. That's a really good point. And I don't know if that's being talked about enough, where, yeah, back when Treliving first took the job, like, he explicitly said, one of the first things on my to-do list is to get Austin signed. And he was going to figure that out, and he did within a couple of months, maybe even like a month or so. Austin Matthews was signed to a contract and was extended a year before he had to be in as a Maple Leaf. That was the plan, right? That was the plan. He was going to sign him. They all knew that they wanted to extend him, and that's what happened. Mitch Marner, there is definitely way more of a debate, and it doesn't seem like Treliving is necessarily, looking at this as a must happen like he was with the Austin Matthews signing. But, apparently, according to the people that Dreger is talking to, if the right trade doesn't come along, he probably would rather extend him and sign him. Now, it's obviously going to depend on what he's asking for, right? If this guy's asking for the world and the sun and the moon and everything in between, he's not going to get it. He can't get it. He really. There was another report today too about like Bertuzzi and the Leafs still working on an extension. How can the Leafs actually just like retain and sign everybody? This is what's kind of getting me this summer. It sounds like they want to try and bring back everyone. Like, someone has to go. They can't possibly be able to retain everyone and still make the necessary changes, specifically on the blue line that they want to make, if they just give everybody all the money and extensions that they want. Like, some of this messaging here, some of this reporting is false. I don't know what is false, what is true. These guys are all solid. They've got their sources. Sometimes their sources are leading them down certain paths, but it seems like, I don't know. Treliving's in on everything. We know this. So, like, what do we believe? Which players is he actually targeting? The answer is everyone. He is targeting and talking to everybody. But when it comes to the Marner situation, it certainly is more intriguing, and I don't know what to believe. Like, he is an amazing talent, and the messaging a year ago when Treliving took the job was, when you get talent like that, you don't just let it get away. teams crave to have talented players such as, what we deem to be the core three or the core four, the big three now we could call it, with Nylander, Matthews, and obviously Mitch Marner. So, although the messaging from the urgency that he showed in wanting to extend Matthews and clearly said that with the media when he took the job is different. But at the same time, the messaging a year ago was when you've got these players, you try and keep these players because it's tough to get. And Marner isn't a terrific player. He's amazing. We know that. But something has to change. You can't just continue to bring things back. You just can't. Like, whether it's Marner who stays, then Bertuzzi has to go. But, he can't bring everyone back. This is where I'm getting so confused by the messaging this summer from everybody, because it sounds like everything's willy-nilly and the whole team's just going to come back for a big barbecue. Can't happen, won't happen.
The best part is I got the Treliving quote in front of me. Like, Mitch is a hell player. He's going to the last year of his contract. We're not going to comment on any players. Any business that we conduct, we'll do that between, obviously, the agent and us. We're going to do play-by-play. We're going to look at the best way to make our team better. Mitch controls a lot of this whole thing. If there's a way to make our team better, we're going to do it. We're certainly not going to make a trade so we can pound our chest and say, look, we're different.
Yeah.
But, that's a totally different shift in messaging. That's why I said, he's not putting himself out there like he's done before, because I think there's also the other side to it where Mitch Marner is trying to, in my opinion, what we've been hearing, he's willing to play out the last year because he is trying to force the team's hand, much like Nylander did.
Yeah, he's trying to get, a big extension. He's trying to get the big deal, right? This is really the contract where Marner's going to make the most money he can, right? That's what this is.
I think he just made quite a bit of money too, which I think a lot of people find funny as well.
He did just make a boatload of money, but he's going to make a boatload more in the next 7 years.
And that, again, guys, that's the way it is nowadays. Every sport's like that. You cash in every time, especially with the salary cap going on.
I would be floored if Mitch Marner took a penny less than what he's been making over the course of the last few years at 10.9. Absolutely floored. And with that, I believe that is kind of a subject to one of the mailbag questions that we got. So why don't we take a break, come back, and we can get into the couple final mailbag questions. One that does pick up on this conversation about a potential Mitch Marner signing, and also one about Cade Weber, which I thought was interesting. So we'll get into that on the other side. It's Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is also brought to you by Policy Genius. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family quick and easy. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. Your work life insurance may not offer enough protection for your family needs, or even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. And we were just having a discussion about Mitch Marner and kind of the latest in that saga. And look, it's probably going to come up, I would imagine, a couple of times a week until the saga is over, whether he's extended or he's traded or he's signed. It's going to be a talking point all summer long and all next season, unfortunately. So buckle up. Lots more Marner talk to come, because that's how we are in Leafs Nation. A bunch of sickos that just can't let this story die. And there seems to be a bit of a new development or new spin on it, seemingly like every other day. And with that, we ended up getting a couple more mailbag questions after yesterday's show. If you missed Mailbag 2.0 and the first set of Mailbag on Friday's show and then yesterday's show, we did get to a bunch of these questions, and then we had a couple more kind of come in a little late that we figured, let's throw it in there and do kind of a hat trick of mailbags, 3 straight shows. So this next question was Marner related and contract related, so it kind of fits with exactly what we've been talking about here today. And it's from Ontario Fisherman 6111. Do you think Marner signs for $8 million for 2 years and John T to a $4 million times 2, so 4 by 2 seasons, just so they have a better chance to win in Toronto? What percentage chance of something like this happens? Oh boy, Ontario Fisherman is optimistic here. $8 million AAV on a 2-year deal for Marner, and what was that? A $4 million AAV on a 2-year deal for Tavares. I'm legitimately going to give this a 0%. That's the percentage odds.
Can I give it a minus?
I was thinking maybe give it a 1%, leave it open to interpretation, maybe, but I'm like, no, it's just not happening. It's just not happening. Like, there's no chance. Like, maybe Tavares, maybe you could see him taking a 4 by 2. There's no shot Marner takes $8 million. And yeah, you could say, but if you want to win, you got to take less so you can win, so they can give money and spread it out to the blue line. These guys have shown that they don't really care about that. Let's be honest. Like, they've shown that. They've done everything they could to get as much money as possible, and then also get the term that allows them to set their next contract up, because that's what it's all been about. And sure, hey, you're pro athletes. This is your job. This is your livelihood. Like, all power to you. I don't hate that Mitch Marner is able to do this, and I also don't think he should be handing out discounts, such as an $8 million contract. So it's a 0% for me. Absolutely 0% chance that this happens. And I don't know where this idea is coming from, that like maybe Marner will take a little less. And by a little less, it's like, like maybe Marner will take like 10 or 9 million, to stay in Toronto. He's not. Like, if I had to give you a percentage odds of him taking just like less money overall, less than a $10.9 million AAV that he is just coming off of, that he's playing on this year, and I said, what are the odds he signs below that? What's your answer for me?
No, it's not happening. Like
it's 3% that he signs below his current AAV.
Yeah, it'd be like that agent Darren Ferris would not have a job if he got his client less, especially if he believes his client is worth more. And the market and everyone talking about Marner would kind of say he's going to get more just because of what he's been able to produce.
And he's got an internal comparable. That's the part where the Leafs screwed themselves the first time around and are doing once again. They've got an internal comparable. There's no chance that you can argue. Like, let's say that Treliving wanted to go and sign Marner to like 10 million. He's like, 10's my max. I'll give you 8 years at 10 million a season, but that's my max. How can you actually argue that Marner is worth $1.5 million less per season than William Nylander? Marner is the better player. Like, can we be honest with ourselves? Marner's the better player than William Nylander most nights. I think we can argue. I don't know. Maybe you're not on that page, but we're talking about a 100-point, Selke candidate. Like, Nylander's not a 100-point Selke candidate. He scored 100 once, I guess, and isn't so great defensively. So, like, they're close. Don't get me wrong, but to sit here and say definitively he's worth about $1.5 million more, that'd be a tough argue. And you're right.
It would be a tough argue. The only argument that Treliving can make for Marner is, okay, you're good doing it during the regular season. Where is it in the playoffs?
Yeah, but like realistically, it's not quite there either for Willie. Like, He's got a few more points than Marner.
Yeah, like if you look at the overall body of work, it's not like Nylander's far and above away better than Marner.
Right.
Like when we're looking at
and we look at points, and we're looking at points for the most part when we talk about this. Think about the defensive attributes that Marner gives you that we don't really necessarily talk about when we discuss the big four and their performance come playoff time. Like, I don't really have that much of an issue with the way that Marner defends in the playoffs. It's always what he does in the offensive end. It's the opposite often for Willie. You don't really have an issue with what he's doing offensively, but then he'll have a lazy back check that'll lead to a goal. So it's, there's definitely an argument to be made there that they've relatively had similar playoff success when you equate 200 feet of the ice.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say Marner had his best defensive effort in this year's playoffs, but this is 1 year. Again, we're talking not just 1 year, and I think that's something people need to realize. The agent's going to argue for the last 3-4 years. This is what my client's been able to do versus this guy.
I mean, these were even still, like, you look back on the scores, like, think about how this series kind of went. Like, was it 2-1, 2-1?
Yep.
Like, these were 2-1 games. How bad could he have been?
I know. Like, it's not what the agent's going to do here is he's going to say, this is what my client did. You gave this guy a pretty, look, Nylander, the thing is, he went from 6.9 to 11.5. Like, there was a bit of a overcorrectness for what he had been doing before to now. Marner, he's been at his high this whole time. I think that's kind of where things got with Willie. The Leafs also were like, we've been playing with a little bit of house money with his deal. A lot of people have been saying that in terms of what he was being paid.
I don't think I don't think that's at all what's happening. You can't run a team like that.
Well, no, it's not. But if you're the Leafs, again, the issue with that Marner did here is he went for the 6-year term. I think he's right. He could have gone fewer years to make sure, because he signed after Matthews and after Nylander. That's also where the agent kind of screwed up a little bit there too.
Which agent?
Darren Ferris.
Why did he screw up?
Because look, Marner takes his deal.
Marner was overpaid. Marner, he ended up making that money and being worth it. But like when he first signed that contract, it was an exorbitant amount. I don't think
he was the highest paid winger in the league when he got signed.
So where did Darren Ferris screw up?
He screwed up in that. Look, now you look at where his client is now. After Matthews,
is he not?
Well, not if everyone's saying that the Leafs can't pay what he wants to get paid.
So what happens?
So if Marner gets the contract that everyone thinks he's going to get at the 12, then his agent did the right job, right?
You don't believe that's going to happen?
I don't. At what point you just talked about it? The Leafs want to do all these things.
Hey, I'm not saying it happens with the Leafs.
If it happens,
I think he gets that money.
You think he gets 12 from another team?
100%. 100%.
I don't know how many cup contending teams will do that $12 million deal. That's the problem.
I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that would be willing to put that money into. I mean, Panarin signed a deal for what, 11.6 like 4 or 5 years ago.
But the Rangers had the cap space to do it when they did it. Like they had.
So a team like, I don't know, like Arizona or Chicago, they've got tons of cap space. They would love to add a player like that to their system.
Well, what I just say, I said cup contender. I didn't like if we're saying Chicago's the team, he will definitely get that money.
They could become a cup contender by adding Mitch Marner.
Well, they need a little more than Mitch Marner, but I get where you're going. Like eventually he could be a part of what could be, but it's a long ways away.
Yeah, my point is, I don't think they purposely did the 6 years so that when it's done, he's a UFA, and that's where you have the most leverage with the Leafs, because you can say, all right, if you don't give me my number, I'm going to go to unrestricted free agency. Whereas if he had signed a 5-year deal, okay, now you're an RFA. You don't have much rights. If he signed an 8-year deal, well, now he's playing at $11 million for the next 2 years. Whereas if he would have, became a free agent at year 6, he's probably going to make more. That's the way that I look at it. I think Darren Ferris did a great
he'll make
job.
more. I'm just saying, though, at the same time, these guys always, Marner said he wants to be a Leaf.
That's a different conversation. Nah, that's a different story. But if we're talking pure, like
I'm just going with the spirit of the question.
Job.
I'm going with the spirit of the question, which is if he wants to stay and win with the Leafs, not putting himself in the best position if he wants to get one thing, and the Leafs are like, well, I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, he's not taking $8 million.
No, I will agree on that. He ain't taking $8 million. He ain't taking 10. He is going to want minimum 11, 5, 12. He's going to want 12. I already know it. 12, 12.5.
100% he's going to want that. He's going to get more money than Nylander. Even if he signs with the Leafs, he's going to get more than Nylander, or if he goes elsewhere. So the Leafs, they might decide to double down. I mean, realistically, the thing is, if you give him 12, let's say, it's only $1 million increase than what he's making now. So it doesn't necessarily screw your cap. And then Tavares is off the book. So and the cap is expected to raise an extra $9 million by the time that deal kicks in. So it's not really that egregious when you actually sit down and you think about it. It's not terrible to give the guy an extra $1 million. It's whether or not you still think you can win with the guy. That's ultimately what it comes down to for me. It's not even the fact that, he's going to ask for 12. It's, okay, he might ask for 12 and he can get us, maybe even a division title and, put up 100 points, Selke candidate. But can we win with this guy? That's ultimately what it does come down to with Mitch Marner. And that's what Brad Treliving has to decide. Not, is he worth 12? Is, can we win with him? I don't care if they pay him $15 million a year. If they go on to win a championship, well, worth it. Don't really care. But can they win with him? That is the ultimate question that Treliving's got to answer for himself.
And let's not forget that with this cap increase is also Nylander's salary going up as well.
Yep, that's true. That's very true. Yep, that's going up, $5 million, I guess, ish?
5.5?
Yeah. And then you got Matthews going up by a couple million.
So that's where it gets tougher because you're adding in that's $25 million is just Matthews and Nylander going into next year.
Yep.
So that's where it gets tough. Can you build the conversation? Can you build the team with all these guys making that money? And I think that's where we're getting this question from. Someone's got to take it somewhere, and I don't think it's going to be Marner, unfortunately.
No, it's not. Or they could just drop Tavares' $11 million and go in a different direction. That's also another possibility, and some would argue the more correct choice than trading Nylander or trading Marner. But again, a conversation for another day. Why don't we save the next one, actually, because I think there's one about Cade Weber, too. But it's not pressing, so we could even, chuck it in there for tomorrow's podcast because we're running up against it for time. Fun little healthy discussion, though, Dave. So this is why Mitch Marner still brings out the healthy debates and the discourse. Doesn't matter. We could talk about it every day, but there's always a different spin and a different take. That's the beauty of Leafs Nation. Always something to complain about, you could say. All right, buddy. Anything else you want to talk about before we take off here?
No, I think we
no one need to say hello to, no shout out, no nothing.
No, we got Maria there. I'm happy about that.
Ooh, actually, I did want to show something off. I was at a card show. I went to picked up a card. Look at this bad boy.
Ooh, boy.
Ooh, baby. Nice little Joey Wall PSA 9 Young Guns.
Ooh, PSA 9.
Hopefully becomes the guy. Yeah, I wish it was a PSA 10. PSA 10 would be a lot better.
I don't think I've ever seen a PSA 10 ever in my life.
In
person.
Where's this? Is that a 10? Nope, that's a 9. Is that a 10? No, those are both 9s. I'll show you one on the next show, but I will also show you this.
Ooh. 2 years from 2 years away, right? 2 years.
Bruno Caboclo, Prism Pink signed rookie autograph, number 99 of 99 too, actually, the Gretzky number. 99 of 99. Picked this up. I thought it was hilarious because it's Bruno Caboclo, a absolute Toronto legend, and I just had to get it. It was cheap enough where it just made too much sense.
One of my favorite draft, as I said, one of my favorite draft analysis of all time.
Yeah, he's the guy who's 2 years away from being 2 years away. Yeah, 4 years from now, he could really be a star for your team. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think like Pascal Siakam kind of was also a similar, kind of thought process.
Late bloomer.
Where it's like, hey, he hasn't played that long, in a couple of years, you could look at this guy and be like, hey, he's going to be a star in a couple of years. He did turn out to be that. Bruno Caboclo, unfortunately, did not. He was a never was, unfortunately. But I thought that was fun to show on a Toronto-centric sports podcast. I'll send a picture off to our friend Sean Woodley over at Locked On Raptors. I'm sure he'll have a good kick out of it. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. We'll see if we'll be recapping the Cup final or see if the Oilers kept it going. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.